Hey, what's up everyone? It's Derek with Nerd or Die and welcome to our OBS Studio tutorial series. In this series, you're going to learn everything that you need to know about OBS Studio to get you up and running with your brand new stream. Now, to start, let me touch on some of the differences in this series compared to the last one that we made. First, we're actually going to include a full set of graphics to help you get up and running with your stream channel and your stream design. Now, these will be either available through direct download on the Nerd or Die website, or you can use one of our graphics makers to kind of customize it the way that you'd like. This means that any graphics that you see us use inside of OBS will be made available for download. Second, we're going to take a little bit more of a modular approach to this guide. Videos are going to be in a specific order that you should follow and watch, but we're going to be breaking them up in a couple more parts. The reason for this is that we want to make sure that we can go back and update any videos if we need to. The last thing is that we'll actually be putting full guides on our website nerdordie.com, where we'll have everything written up and all the instructions available there as well. So you might be wondering, what am I going to learn in this series? The first thing that we're going to talk about is the difference between OBS Studio and OBS Classic. So if you haven't upgraded yet, you're going to understand why I think you should make the move. Then we're going to download, install, and set up profiles inside of OBS Studio. Following that, we're going to move into the general settings for OBS Studio, which will actually be a two-part episode. We'll take a look at using different sources after that. We're going to go into In this video, we're going to download, install, and set up some profiles in OBS Studio. Let's get right into it. To get started, let's go to obsproject.com, and on the left, we'll actually see options for OBS Classic. On the right, we're going collection of all of your settings. So let's say two different people use this computer for streaming, or you might want to make a profile with different video settings. You can create a new profile here and switch between them very easily. Next, let's do the same thing for scene collection. A scene collection will store all of your different scenes and sources that we'll set up in later videos. Setting up different scene collections can be extremely useful for those that stream different games frequently. Now with that, we've got OBS set up and we can move on to our next video, which is going to be about general settings in OBS Studio. If you have any questions about this video, please make sure to let us know in the comments below. Hey, what's up everyone? It's Derek with Nerd or Die and Hey, what's up everyone? This is Derek with related content from Nerd or Die. Thanks for watching. In this video, we're going to download, install, and set up some profiles in OBS Studio. Let's get right into it. To get started, let's go to obsproject.com, and on the left, hey everyone, in this video we're going to talk about the best settings that you can set up in OBS Studio. Let's get right into it. Now, the first thing that I want to mention is that settings will vary from person to person and stream to stream. I want to guide you
Hey, I just created a Wix website for my business. Let me show you how I did it. Let's go to Wix.com. I can add anything I want and change things.
Hey everyone, what's up? It's Derek with Nerd or Die, and in this video we're going to take an in-depth look at each source in OBS Studio. The version that I'm currently running is OBS Studio with the browser source. You can download it from the link in the description below. if you need. So first, let's take a look at what sources and scenes are. A source is basically a certain type of input that's captured inside of OBS. They can be images, videos, webcam captures, game captures, and a lot more. A scene is just basically a collection of sources, and we'll get more into scenes in the next video. In OBS Studio, we'll see that the scenes here are on the bottom left and sources are right next to it. In our default scene, I'm going to show you what each source looks like and talk about what we can use them for. A big difference between OBS Classic and OBS Studio is that Studio basically treats all sources as global sources. This means that they're running at all times unless we tell them to otherwise. And we'll get a little bit more into this in a bit. Now, to add a source, we can click on the plus icon or just simply right-click in the source area. We'll go to add and then select what type of source we want to add. Let's go ahead and start with adding an image. When adding a source, we'll always be prompted to create a new one or to use an existing one. Using an existing source will be very useful for things like webcams or game captures that will be shown in different scenes. Under Create New, let's name this Watermark and hit OK. For an image, there aren't many options. We can click Browse and find the image we're going to.
Hey, so you need a website. Let me show you how I made mine with Wix. First, I went to Wix.com. Here you can start from scratch.
Add in. I'm going to select an image of the Nerd or Die logo, and before I click OK, you might see Unload Image when not showing checkbox right here. For purposes of this series, don't worry about this option at the moment. Let's go ahead and hit OK, and now the image that we selected will be in our preview area. This area represents what will be shown on our stream. So if I hit start streaming right now, viewers would see a black screen with my logo on it. Let's talk about positioning the source for a moment. These position techniques will work with all sources, so keep them in mind for future videos. With the source selected, we can simply click and move it where we'd like. If we want to resize, we can click a point of this red bounding box and drag it to resize the image. What if we want to position or transform it in different ways? We can right-click on the source and let's go to Transform. Edit Transform contains some advanced techniques for sizing and positioning, which we'll cover in later videos. Reset Transform or Ctrl+R will reset our source to its original size and aspect ratio. We can use the rotate options here to rotate any source. Flip horizontal and vertical can also be very useful as well. Fit to screen will make your source take up the maximum size of the preview area while keeping the source's proportions or aspect ratio intact. Stretch to screen will stretch the source to fill the entire preview area with your source. I need to change the source's original settings. I can select it in the source panel and click the gear, or I can even right click and go to properties to kind of get back to where we started. Here I can change the source image since this is an image source. Let's go ahead and add another source. This time we'll use add a browser source. I'll just leave its default name and hit OK to create this source. A browser source is essentially like opening up a web page inside of OBS Studio. If your web page is stored locally on your computer, you can check the local file box and then select the file that you'd like to open. We're going to go ahead and just leave it unchecked. The URL will tell OBS what page you want to open. The width and height will be how big the source is. Our FPS will be frames per second that the source runs in. I typically leave mine at 30, which is the FPS that I stream at. And the CSS box is for custom code that can manipulate the source inside. Don't worry too much about that right now. The shutdown when not active box is actually pretty useful for this source, as you can easily refresh a page by toggling the source on and off. So let's actually check this box for this source and then hit OK. We'll see the source in the preview area, and if we want to move it around a bit, we'll see that it's actually covering up our watermark. What if you want the watermark on top? Well, that's actually easy to do. Make sure the browser source is selected in the Sources panel, and then hit the down arrow. Sources in OBS Studio work somewhat like layers in Photoshop, where they can be stacked on top of each other. If they're lower in the source panel, If you're adding in alerts or notifications to your stream through some program like Twitch Alerts, Stream Pro, or Gaming for Good. And this source is actually one of my favorite inside of OBS. I use it for a lot of things. Anyways, I'm going to move the watermark out of the way and select the browser source. I'm going to right-click the browser source in my preview window and hit Interact. A window will pop up and allow us to actually click inside of this website, just like it was open in Google Chrome. If I close this window and then go to the eye icon in the source panel next to the browser source, I can click it to hide this source, and this can be done with any source that we add. If I then click again to show the source, we'll see that the page has refreshed and we're back to our original web page. This is because we checked the box for shut down when not active in our source properties. The next source we'll look at is the media source. Let's go ahead and add one into our scene. We'll leave the local file box checked, as most files we'll add will be stored on our computer. Most people use media sources for movie files or GIFs or GIFs. However, you can add in audio files here as well.
So I just created this dope website with Wix. Let me show you how I did it. First up, go to Wix.com. Now this is where the magic happens. You're gonna add an image and some text. Oh, that's nice. First, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with the font. Wait a minute, Frank, Brandon, David, who are these guys? You know, one day I'm gonna create feral font. You guys know I got a lot of videos. Here, I've uploaded them all. And with a subscription, you guys can check out my top secret material.
Hey, yo, I'm killing it in this high quality.
See, I'm a sharing kind of guy. So here's my Instagram, instant access. I look good, what? Man, I know how hard it is to make people stand up and listen, but with a site like this, you're already there. Go to Wix.com and create your stunning website today. That's all you got to do. It ain't hard. You ain't doing nothing. Stop eating chips.
I'm going to go ahead and select a movie file that was made by Chris at Nerd or Die, and I want this file to loop, so I'm going to select loop. The restart playback when source becomes active option means that if we disable a source by either hiding it or changing scenes, the file will play from the beginning. If you're using this source for a looping background or something like that, then we can just leave this unchecked. But if it's something like a scene transition or just any file that you want to play from the beginning when you go back to your scene that it's in, make sure to check this option. All other options we can leave at default. Next is the text source. This source is pretty straightforward but can be important for a lot of cool additions to our stream. When adding one you want to play from the beginning when you go back to your scene that it's in, make sure to check this option. All other options we can leave at default. Next is the text source. This source is pretty straightforward but can be important for a lot of cool additions to our stream. When adding one in, you'll notice a couple of options. We can start by selecting a specific font size that we like. We can choose most fonts installed on our system, what style they have, and their size. We can even add underlines or strokes in this panel. One thing about the text source that I really want to point out is that if you want to make your font size bigger, make sure to do it in here. If you use the click and drag method as we've shown before to just scale things up, then you'll actually get some text with some blurry edges. With the font selected, we can hit OK and go back to the properties of the source. We can now enter in the text that we want to display right here. I'll just put something generic in. Another great option that OBS Studio offers is the ability to read text from a file. This will be extremely useful for things like music tickers or alert lists that we can add into our stream later. You'll basically tell OBS to check on these files and then display whatever these text files have inside of them. Now let's leave it unchecked and move on for now. If you have a similar version of me, you'll see color 1 and color 2. 1 will be the top color of your text and 2 will be the bottom part of your text. We can use this to add gradient effects to the text if we desire, But if you want to, you can just make both of these colors the same to have a flat color text. We can also use these boxes to enable stroke around our text or even drop shadows. And with that, that's all the options that we need to look at for the text source. Let's go ahead and add a display capture